hearing with 603, Deborah, when you're ready.
We'll let Paul call the meeting to order.
Okay. I call to order the regular meeting of the Building Board of Appeals for the City of Ann Arbor for June 17th, 2021. Roll call.
Hugh Flack.
Present, and I'm in Ann Arbor.
Thank you very much. Jeff Perkins.
Present, Ann Arbor.
Paul Darling.
Present, and I'm in Ann Arbor.
Robert Hart.
Present and in Ann Arbor.
David Arnsdorf. And Bruce Carson. I think he resigned. Did Bruce resign, Glenn? Was that
Yes, that is correct.
For staff, we have Glenn Dempsey,
I'm here in Mason, Michigan.
Randy Lewis,
Present, and in Adrian, Michigan.
Mike Lemieux,
Present, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
myself, Deborah Williams, in Ann Arbor. Roll call is complete, and we do have a quorum.
We have five staff, or five board members. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
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 The agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the May 20th, 2021 meeting. Those were sent out, and an updated copy sent out this morning. Did they have any other comments on the minutes from the board?
Move to approve.
If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. And then public commentary general. Do we have any public commentary, Deborah?
We have no one in the waiting room for public commentary. I believe these are all participants.
Okay. Appeals, actions, and show cause hearing. The first item on the agenda is Appeal 21-1187 at 603 East Liberty Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan. So we'll ask the applicant to give a brief summary of, or first it would be a staff report, and then the applicant will give a brief summary of what the request for appeal is, and then we will have the board ask the applicant questions and then make a motion one way or the other. So can we have a staff report?
Yes, 603 East Liberty came in with an application to provide a to add to the construction that would possibly allow the property line to have an opening, which was denied. The property line is the intended, and it's intended to move the property line to that location, which they had applied for, but it was denied as code did not allow. You've seen the code commentary that's been provided. When that was applied for, there are two other buildings that are coming into play with this. So this hearing is for the openings for 603 East Liberty that will go into these other two buildings. While the project that was submitted was a modification to their common wall, I felt it was proper to submit all three because I think the total project is what is being looked at this time. It doesn't mean that the buildings will be approved for 212 South State or 616 West Washington. It's just the means of allowing them to continue on with design as the openings are on the property lines for all three buildings intended in the future here, in the near future. So the applicant has applied and submitted information that he feels will be better or equivalent or better than what is required. I will tell you that in the 3 foot from the property line, there's technically no openings allowed. And so they have proposed that they're going to have fire doors and shutters along with a deluge system, a suppression system at the openings that are proposed for. Each of those openings are on the property lines, one going from 616, or I'm sorry, one going from the 603 East Liberty to 212 South State. The other opening going to the 616 West Washington from 603 East Liberty. Then there's another fire door that goes from 616 to 212. Those would be the intended three openings. The fourth opening is an egress path that goes to the right, that allows access into the alley, which will take them to the public right of way. The intended idea there is that they'll get approvals from 603 East Liberty, which is the Michigan Theater, for access and a no build of that location entering into the alley. Staff would neither support nor deny or recommend denial. We will stand mute on this. So with that, that's staff report.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Can the applicant give us a brief summary of their request for the variance?
Sure.
Yeah, Brad Moore here. It's good to see everybody again. The last time I was before you was for a similar condition over on.
We can't hear you, Brad.
For some reason, everything just reset. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right. Brad Moore here. I don't know where it cut me off when it decided to reset my screen, but I was saying the last time I was before the board was for a property down on South University, again, connecting two properties in a similar manner. So we've used what worked there in terms of the minds of the board members to provide adequate separation between adjacent buildings while still permitting an internal connection to inform our approach in this situation. I've got other team members here with me today, Scott Bowers and Laura Eder with ESG Architects, who are all part of the team working to make this happen. I've also submitted today, and I know that Deborah said she received it, a letter of support from the Michigan Theater, who is urging an approval of this requested variance. The requested variance is both enhance an existing condition as well as create a new condition affording the Michigan Theater the ability to have fully modern upgraded restrooms, an improvement over the situation that they have now. Scott has worked with the building department to arrive at an enhancement of the current cross-property connection. And I'll let Scott jump in and start there, and then he can hand it off to Laura to describe, or maybe they're going to go the opposite direction. I'll let them decide who wants to go first.
Scott, I'll let you go first, but I was going to ask Deborah if it was possible for me to share my screen.
Unfortunately, it's not because it's a city Zoom account.
Mhm.
If you want to send something to me real quickly, I can open it up.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll
Mhm.
do that. Scott, do you want to start while I send this?
Scott, you there? Maybe his screen reset too.
Yeah, mine reset. Sorry.
Now I
So,
got you.
currently there's an existing opening between the lobby of the Michigan Theater and the screening room. It is across property line. We're intending to build a firewall against the Michigan Theater, but in what was a pedestrian hallway by the screening room, a true firewall separating the two buildings, a 3-hour, with a fire shutter on the screening room side and two 90-minute doors on the lobby side with a deluge system. We feel that is more than safe compared to what it is there right now. It was originally approved as a pedestrian walkway. The building does have a 3-hour firewall or 3-hour wall between the hallway and the screening room as it exists right now. And that was approved back in 1998. So it's been in use since then. We're just enhancing it now and making it a better situation. The other door we're discussing is one from the lobby to the new proposed bathrooms. A similar situation will have a 90-minute door in the wall to the Michigan Theater lobby. On the other side, there will be a shutter, and Laura can explain more what she's going to do on that side, because that's 212 and 616 are ESG's projects. So the reason why we've moved these is one to build the 616 project and to enhance the toilet facilities that we have in the Michigan Theater. They're quite far away down a long hallway, and we're bringing them closer to the lobby. Is newly constructed bathrooms, ADA issues, family bathroom, and increase in fixture counts. It would have worked better with the drawings up, but that's fine.
It's also on page 24 in the packet for today. So if you go to page 24, there's a detail on the plan that kind of describes these different conditions. So the two that Scott just described is door number 1 and door number 3. And hopefully we'll get to see a screen soon. Scott, do you have anything else, or did you want me to jump in on that?
No, you might as well jump in because it's difficult without the drawings.
Yes, no problem. So I'm Laura Eder with ESG Architects, and we are the architects for the new 616 and 212 building, which 616 is on the property to the north of the Michigan Theater, which includes the screening room. And then the 212 State Street is actually on the Sava property. So it is an additional building on that property. There is a property line between the Michigan Theater, 212, and 616. And as Glenn described, door number 1, 2, and 3, which connects between the Michigan Theater. You can just go back to that plan. That's fine. Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate it. Those openings are across property lines. As Scott described, opening number 1 is an existing opening between the Michigan Theater and the screening room. That is currently across a property line. We are proposing to add a 3-hour fire shutter and a 3-hour wall along that northern side of the property line, with that deluge water curtain sprinkler in between the door and the fire shutter. Door number 2, which is kind of in the top, we'll call it the top left corner of the light blue shaded area, that gets you into the restroom lobby area has 2 fire shutters. The northern property on 616 would be a 90-minute rated fire shutter in that 2-hour wall. And then the southern one would be a 3-hour fire rated shutter in that 3-hour wall. And then that would also have that fire sprinkler curtain deluge system between those 2 doors as well. And then door number 3 is between the restrooms and the Michigan Theater on the western property line. That would have a 90-minute door in the 2-hour existing Michigan Theater wall. And then it would have a 3-hour fire shutter in the 212 building with that deluge sprinkler system head in between those 2. That head allows us to have kind of a redundant system in case one of the fire shutters didn't work or something happened. You now have that 3rd level of protection at that opening. So we feel that that's an extra level of protection at those openings, since openings are not allowed within 3 feet of the property line. So those 3 door openings are similar, where we're trying to keep the fire rating of the wall with a door in each wall. And then the southern one, which is door number 4, is the egress for the restrooms. So the restrooms in the lobby to the residential building, this 5-story 212 building that we have here, there is no connection between the residential portion and these restrooms for the Michigan Theater. This first floor restrooms is solely for the Michigan Theater. So we are not crossing back into any buildings going north or west, but we are going to need to exit the restrooms if for some reason the fire alarm was to go off while somebody was in those restrooms. So we are taking that door to the south and swinging across the property line, which that property is owned by the Michigan Theater and would be a no build easement. And they also have a private alley egress easement as well for their 3 doors that come out on the eastern facade there. But we
And one of the things what I wanted to point out as well is that these 3 proposed openings do not involve any of the egress paths for any of the properties. So if these doors and fire shutters were all to deploy, all the other adjacent spaces have adequate egress paths that don't involve needing to go through those openings.
Right.
That's correct. That's everything that I had to describe those openings and the appeal that we're here to present today. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on your team? Scott, did you have any other comment, or are you?
No, Laura did a great job.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now we'll open it up to members from the board to see if they have any questions for the applicant.
I have a couple of questions. If I understand this correctly, I see door number 4 actually exits from the building to an exterior condition, and 2 and 3 basically are interior to the structure. When I think about this, I realize the ownership, there's different ownership for the properties, but I guess my question is, from a code standpoint, if these, let's say this entire building was all under single ownership, there were no property lines there, are the means of protection that you're providing over and above what would be considered for normal fire separation between these spaces?
Yes. If there were no property lines, there would be a 1-hour occupancy separation, and that would be it.
So I guess my question is, from a practical standpoint, even though there's separate ownership, this is all one building. Why does this 3-foot property line rule come into play? I can see where if it were door number 4, which goes to the exterior, where there might be some issue there, but I personally don't see an issue when you're all in effect all within the same building.
Let me add just a nuance, Jeff. I don't know that I can answer that question, but I can add a little bit of nuance to the picture that may or may not help you. We have three tax parcels, tax IDs. One is the Michigan Theater 603, the other is the 212 South State, and then the third one is the 616 East Washington. And even though those will be three separate tax IDs, both 616 and 212 will be a condominium form of ownership. So the Michigan Theater will own the condo unit that represents those bathrooms that sit on 212. And they will also own the condominium unit on 616 that represents the screening room. So there's a subtlety there that is maybe it's just legalese, but there will be property lines there because there will be separate tax ID numbers. But Michigan Theater will have ownership of the screening room, and they will have ownership of that bathroom component of 212. So it is probably an animal that isn't completely anticipated by the code, but shares aspects with both sides of the code. The side that says, well, it's all under one ownership, why do you need it? But also it has a foot in the side of the code that says they cross property lines. So I think that we're just taking this approach out of an abundance of caution.
I appreciate that, and I understand it and respect it. I just feel from a practical standpoint, forcing building owners to spend this kind of money to solve a problem that wouldn't be there when it's all under one roof, I think, is unfortunate. And I appreciate that the building owners and architects have come up with solutions that address an aspect of the code that I don't think the code was ever able to anticipate. So I guess that's the clarification I needed. If these were all under the same ownership on the same parcel of property, what you're doing here would be totally unnecessary. I just want that to be on the table.
Right.
Yeah, hold that thought for the next item on the agenda after this one.
So I think another piece of this too is these are three buildings because they have different height and area requirements. So that may drive some fire separations between them too. I think one's 5 stories. I'm not sure what the 616 is. That's multiple stories, where Michigan Theater is a different construction type and much, a smaller area, but
Yeah, so the first level of the 212 building is going to be type 1A. It's going to be a podium style with a 3-hour horizontal separation at the ceiling, so at level 2. And then the 616 building is also a type 1A building, and it'll be 19 stories. So type of construction, unlimited area between those two is the same, but the existing Michigan Theater screening room is a type 3B. So that one does have area limitations. It's well under its area limitation as it stands today. And then the Michigan Theater is, we'll call it from the previous code before we were in the types 1 through 5. But all buildings are fully sprinklered.
Your fire shutter doors are going to be all tied to the Michigan Theater's fire alarm system?
Our plan is to tie them to both. So regardless of which building has a fire alarm trigger or activate, we will close both doors.
So if I'm in the bathroom and the alarm goes off and the fire shutter door shuts, am I going to panic because I think I can't get out?
There will be egress signs, but yes, you will not be able to go back into the building. You'll have to go out that exit door on the south.
Okay, so that'll shut regardless at some point of whether the theater alarm goes off or the other building's alarm goes off, right? Yeah.
Correct.
I'm just concerned, or the thought I had was just people not knowing what to do once the door shuts, because and they feel they're trapped or something.
Well,
is there a communication system that's going to be put in there that would instruct people how to get out if they're on the bathroom side when that shutter comes down? or sign besides signage, or?
Yeah, there's the ability to have the communication system tell you which direction to go. But yes, there'll be the required signage as well that says not an exit above those bathroom doors. And
I
sending you
believe
back
the
in the
Michigan
direction.
Theater needs to be paging system.
And then the other with fire shutter doors is obviously if somebody sticks something there and the door can't shut all the way. Making sure that there's clearance for the shutter door to shut. I've always struggled with that in my previous life.
Well, and that's part of the reason we have a belt and suspenders approach, in that the water curtain would activate if there actually was a fire. And so even if there was some deployment issue with either of the fire shutters, we know we've got the ability to prevent the communication of that smoke and flame.
Is door number 3 between the lobby and the restroom area, is that a door that's going to be on a hold open, or is that going to be a closer on that door? What's the position of that door in most cases? Because you have the 90-minute door on one side and the shutter on the other side, right? It builds that assembly.
My understanding is that, and Laura, you could correct me, and Scott, my understanding is they would have magnetic hold opens that would be also integrated with the alarm.
Yes, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
That is correct.
And the deluge system would be activated based on heat to trigger the sprinkler to go off? Yeah.
Yes. So basically, if the fire alarm gets to the point where, if the fire gets to a point where the sprinklers go off in any building, then that deluge system will also activate.
I think in the next appeal is a similar kind of question: is are the bathrooms in a different building than the use, and how do we address that? Can you have bathrooms in an adjacent building, plumbing codes wise? I guess they're under the same ownership, but they're technically different buildings. And maybe that was the case even when it was in the screening room.
It is the case
Was the
right
case.
now. Mm-hmm.
Most of this is very similar to what we have right now at the Michigan Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Except, of course, we get a fully modern, fully ADA compliant bathroom facilities with more fixtures, which I don't know how often you go to the Michigan Theater, but my wife would greatly appreciate more fixtures.
I did the count and I see there's a lot more facilities for the women than there are for the men. So my wife would agree with you as well.
I guess that's what happens when your architect is a woman.
Right.
Thank you, Laura.
So are the rated doors that are going into the Michigan Theater lobby, are they on magnetic hold opens?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
That's both sets, the pair of doors into the screening room and the one that goes into the bathrooms.
Correct, Paul. Both sets.
Okay.
And if the sprinkler system gets triggered in either building, will that also activate the shutters coming down?
Yes.
Is that true for 616? So they each want to be tied to the adjacent building. It won't be all three together. It'll be basically to the adjacent building that share the wall. So
Wouldn't the
212 will
alarm
be
set off the
tied to
shutter?
that shutter.
I would think the alarm sets off the shutter, not the fact that there's a fire near the shutter.
The alarm
That's
The
the
does.
alarm-
that shuts it off.
The alarm would activate the shutter, and the fire would activate the deluge system.
Yeah, and I
So
don't,
from a
I think,
practical standpoint, are we not imposing, well, I shouldn't say we're imposing, because frankly, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that if this proposal came back to us treating these openings as though they were all in the same building without these shutters and deluge system, I would support it. And Glenn will probably kick me off the board for putting that out there, but from a practical standpoint, I think we're making this situation less safe. If I'm in that bathroom and the door that I came through gets shuttered and barred, and another door within 10 feet of it is shuttered and barred, and I don't know that door number 4 is there, I'm going to feel trapped. So I think if anything, we've made this building less safe from a user standpoint. Panic is, I can just see it as a real issue.
One
So
suggestion
I am not opposed to what you're doing here. I'm just sorry that you're having to do it.
One suggestion we could do is follow the new firewall rules where you can actually put one opening within 2 walls of a firewall. So in the 2015 code, there is now the ability, I think it's NFPA 221, allows you to do 1 door and a double firewall. So what we could do is put 3 man doors at these locations that would close at the point of a fire alarm, keep the deluge system so you still have that redundant system, but lose the fire shutters so that you still have that 3-hour rating and you still have the fire deluge system, but you're no longer preventing egress from happening if somebody were to get into a point. And if you open the door, you might see a fire. I guess you'd close it and run the other way.
Laura, you said 2015 code. Did you mean 2018?
No, it's the 2015 IBC that allows the NFPA 2, I think it's 221, that does the double firewall with a single rated opening. So you don't have to do 2 doors and a firewall.
Glenn, do we know if that telegraphs into the 2015 MBC?
I don't think that exceptions in there was probably written out, but I can take a look here. What section are you talking about? What section was it in the IPC?
NFPA 221, I think she said.
No, I don't have that accessibility without a little bit of time of getting online then.
Yeah. I mean, we could say that something in a more recent version of the code is we could apply that as a justification that would be allowed in a more current code. So that's good to know.
Yeah, if I might add, the Michigan Building Code may not direct you to that NFPA, or the mechanical code may not direct you to the NFPA. So it may direct you to the IFC, which may be different. That's something that wasn't looked at or brought up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you anticipate a lot of false alarms in this building too, being a residential there too. Is that having that shutter come down with a lot of false alarms would be troubling? I mean, if it was a real event, but you wouldn't want the thing dropping once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Well, once that shutter goes down, usually it takes somebody of a little expertise like maintenance to be able to get the thing to go back up.
I mean, if your second means of egress was out of the same space, you could see the other door, like we went through the north wall there. I think that would be an option. People would see the exit, but the fact that they would have to travel back through the restroom to get to the other door is a difficulty.
That's my problem, is your natural instinct when the alarm goes off is to go back out the way you came in. And if it's during intermission and those bathrooms are full, it scares me.
Yeah, it's not a clear egress path through there. I mean, it could be tight.
If I might add, and I don't see where I can raise my hand. I'm sorry for that. Keep in mind that while the instinct as noted in the code, that you do travel back through the same way you came. If you are unable to, it should be well lit up with signage and exiting signage to get you out. And I don't think the distances are that far. I refer that back to either Scott or Brad or whatever to give us a dimension. But I think it should be pretty visible that there is another route out.
So we would have exit signs over both of the bathroom doors. The men's and women's door would have exit signs, and we'd have exit signs at the south part of those rooms as well that would be illuminated.
So that'd be the emergency exit only, so people don't use those on a common basis, thinking they get back to the lobby that way then?
I don't think I'm sorry, but I don't think the exit was going back into the lobby. That's two other ways.
No, but I'm saying if you put exit signs there, people might think that maybe that's another way they can get from the restroom back to the lobby. Depends how it's really an emergency exit only. It sounds like you wouldn't be exiting that way. Maybe you could exit that after a show. You could exit that way too, or you want to prevent people from exiting that way on a normal basis.
It's going to be an emergency exit.
Yeah, so that door going out to the alley would have an alarm, a localized alarm on it.
Well, to Jeff's point, though, imposing the shutters makes you go through a much more convoluted egress path for the screening room. I mean, that corridor just winds around forever through multiple doors to get out. So I could also support not putting the shutters in, which begs the question, what would be the rating for the doors if you had just doors?
They'd be 90-minute.
We could do 90-minute or 180-minute doors. Either way. Right now, the doors that are shown are in 90-minute doors because they're in the existing Michigan Theater walls, which are 2-hour rated exterior walls.
So with all this conversation, I'd like to jump in one more time here. Keep in mind that this is not a preference, but how you feel if it's equivalent or better, and that's what they're seeking the variance on, for the exception.
Well, personally, I think an equivalent thing would be to provide doors that meet the fire code separation requirements based on the different building types and occupant load for the spaces. That to me would be an equivalent solution to the problem. Deluge systems and fire shutters and all of that stuff to me is overkill, and it's an expense on the building owner that hopefully they're never needed, but when they are needed, they might actually be a less safe situation. So,
Well, the problem with fire doors, though, is that with a panic bar, it's typically a one-way movement. So if that door shuts because the alarm goes off, you're in the bathroom, you still can't go back through that door like it was a shutter because they'd be pushing everybody the other way. You don't want people running back into the fire.
I just want to clarify something with Laura. It's my understanding that there are potentially 3 different scenarios that would activate the shutters, Laura. One is if there was a fire in the theater, as I understand it, that would close the door to the screening room and its attendant shutter, and also the door to the bathroom and its attendant shutter. But wouldn't the opening between 616 and 212 remain open in that scenario since there's no fire in 616?
Yes.
So I think we're in a scenario that the only time when you would have both of those doors that are doors you would have come through potentially to get to the bathroom, the only time that both of those would deploy simultaneously would be if the fire was actually in the bathrooms.
Or in the building above.
Correct.
It could be in the building above as well. So in the apartment unit. Could
Is that
trigger
horizontal
this.
assembly a different building, or is that just a separation between uses? That 3-hour horizontal, that's a building separation, or is that a?
It's a building type construction separation. So it'll be a type 5A building above the type 1A building, but because we're exiting through this level, it's
Yeah.
part of the same building
Uh-huh.
for fire alarm system.
If I heard that correctly, then if the fire is in the bathroom, and that's the only time that those egress points aren't going to be valid, that's when the shutters drop. So if I'm in the bathroom and the fire breaks out, I can't get out. What if the fire is down by door number 4? Then what do I do?
Well,
Well,
It's-
based on the occupancy, you're only required one means of egress if there's less than 50 occupants, and we have a total of 47. But I do realize your normal thought through a Michigan theater bathroom break during a show, and you might really have 50 people or so packed in there. So
People waiting as well as people using it. Mhm.
mhm.
Right, but if a fire breaks out by door number 4 and the shutters drop, that door number 4 is now my only way out of the bathroom, and it's the fire's there. I can't go that way. I'd love for this to be cut and dried for the petitioner, but I'm not going to oppose what you're doing here. I just don't think it is equivalent to or creates a safer condition.
Maybe actually you could suggest that maybe if Laura can submit that additional information about the NFPA 221, and we could look at putting a single door that swung the right direction back into the lobby like they're showing it there now, the people could still egress that. So even if we don't have a shutter that closes, people could still exit through that back into the lobby with a single door that was, 180 minutes. That may, still have the second means of egress out of that space, but it's not the primary way out.
Would that be only for that door, or would you be looking at that as doors towards the
I
screen
mean,
room?
I guess we could look at it. It would apply to any time they have there's a firewall or a exterior wall with an opening in it. We could look at that applying toward that if it was applicable to what we're doing here. But that would give us a equivalency potentially.
What does not having this resolved today do for you as far as your critical path for construction and so forth? Could you take a second look at this and bring something back to us that, if you want to go ahead with this, like I said, I'm not going to oppose it, but I would be certainly willing to entertain some safer alternatives.
Jeff, what I think it is that we knew that we could put the openings, whether it's this way or the proposed alternate, we could continue on moving forward while we come back with that improvement for these doors.
So if you come back to us, that would not hold up the rest of your timeline for your project?
As long as we can keep it moving pretty quickly. I can't speak for Terry, but I would assume that if we knew the openings are there, we wouldn't cause a redesign for the whole structure to figure out how to make this work.
I don't have a problem with the location of the openings. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. The locations to me are fine. They make sense. I just don't like the treatment of having to shutter off exit points and so forth. So
Yeah, this is Terry with ESG Architects. Would we be talking about roughly a month in time if we came back with a better solution?
That's
Typically-
typically.
So I guess, Jeff, I'm trying to wrap my head around what the thought is. Are you thinking are you thinking that the BBA would table it today? And then we would submit supplemental information and potentially revised approach and be on the next month's agenda?
Yeah, I don't know what the deadlines are. Deborah can speak to that, but I'd like to see you get rid of the shutters.
Well,
I don't
so
know
would
if
I. So why don't we float a motion in that regard?
Yeah, could it be approved with conditions today?
I can make a motion and see if it flies.
That's your specialty, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
So I do have one small thing that about the bathroom egress. Even though the occupancy doesn't require the door to swing in the direction of travel, but it does, I just wonder whether those two other doors that are leading into that little vestibule could also be reconfigured so that everything flows in the same direction. That would be 27 and 19.
Yeah, again, this is Terry with ESG. I think we could easily do that, Bob. That's a simple modification.
Okay. So Paul, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm reading from the appeal granted portion of the packet. I move that in case BBA 21-003, the appeal of the building official's decision that the work to be performed at 603 East Liberty is granted relief from section 705.8.1 and table 705.8, and the building board of appeal reverses the building official's decision for the reasons that the applicant is proposing an equal or better form of construction insofar as it will be using rated 180-minute fire doors in combination with a deluge system in lieu of the proposed fire shutters at double firewall conditions, and that those doors will be interconnected to the 616, 212, and 603 fire alarm systems, and that further that the doors from the restroom doors exiting into the bathroom vestibule by door number 4 swing in the direction of travel, similar to the new or to the proposed egress door to the alleyway.
Any comments on the motion from the board?
That's
My
why
only
we-
concern is where we're tying the alarms of 3 different buildings to the same doors. I think the architects should look at that and include that in their proposal as to if there's some reason why that doesn't make sense, they can explain it.
John Reiser has his hand up.
A couple things. Was there a second? And do you need to have that read back? Because that was quite a long motion. Or do you have some sense of that, Deborah, so we know that we're talking about what we're debating?
I would
First
ask
of all, I
that,
second.
I would ask that Bob read it back, please.
Or email it to you if he's reading from something?
He's reading from what's in the packet.
Okay,
I'm also reading from my notes that I
right.
chicken
Right.
scratched here.
He supplemented it. I just want to make sure you get it and they talk about it and we vote on it one way or the other.
Mhm. So Bob, the way you worded that, is the alarm tied to the building on each side of the wall and not all 3 together? The alarm only ties to the shared wall, correct?
But there's more than one share. I mean, there are
Well,
there's several shared.
Michigan Theater to 2122 or Michigan Theater to the 616, but they don't, not 212 to 616, we don't tie together.
how about adding that they would be interconnected to the 616, 212, and 603 fire alarm systems as deemed appropriate by the architect of record and the building official?
That works for me.
Okay.
Can you reread the whole thing, Bob, again, please?
Oh,
Sorry. Sorry.
You got to record it, Bob. Play it back.
well, okay, hold on. Okay. I move that in case BBA 21-003, the appeal of the building official's decision that the work to be performed at 603 Liberty is granted relief from section 705.8.1 and table 705.8, and the building board of appeals reverses the building official's decision for the reason that the applicant has proposed an equal or better form of construction insofar as it will be using rated 180-minute fire doors in combination with a deluge system in lieu of the proposed fire shutters at double firewall conditions, which will be interconnected to the 616, 212, and 603 fire alarm systems as deemed appropriate by the building official and architect of record. Further, that the doors exiting into the bathroom vestibule by new door number 4 will swing in the direction of travel, as does the new egress door to the alley.
Have a second?
Second.
Any other further discussion?
That's why we pay Bob the big bucks.
I'm retired, man.
Must be nice.
Those in favor of the motion, as written or said there, say aye.
Aye.
Those against? We have no votes against, so it's 5 to nothing, and it looks like it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is BBA 2102. Oh, let's see minutes. Is that the minutes? Is BBA 2104 appeal at 115, 117 West Liberty, Ann Arbor, Michigan. You have the applicant tied in yet, Deborah?
Yeah, we should have everyone on. They unmute themselves.
Hello, this is Tresna Taylor. I'm from DFDG, the architect of record. Deborah, are people able to hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine. Thank you.
So first we'll have a staff report. Glenn?
Okay. The Art Center is proposing to put 2 openings in the walls of the adjoining properties at 115 and 117. It is on the first and second floor. They're asking for relief from section 705 and table 705.8, allowing the opening in the fire rated wall, as I had mentioned, on the first and second floor. This would allow access to the different programs and functions of both buildings and provide some safety for the individuals, and probably most specifically minors that may be transferring to and from both locations. And they're proposing to have fire doors, shutters, and a deluge system also. very similar to the last hearing. They are proposing an equal or better form of construction, and that's what they're weighing in on.
Okay.
Thank you.
So can the applicant present their appeal?
Yes. So it's a little bit less complicated than the previous applicant. We were really proposing, as Glenn summarized, the two openings. I guess I wanted to add on the first floor, it is a 6-foot opening with a fire shutter. That fire shutter would be open during the business hours to connect to the proposed exhibit gallery, which is going to be on the 115 side, with the 117 side, which is the current art center, that would connect to the retail gallery and the classroom buildings. That fire shutter door would be closed every night so that the art center can secure the exhibit gallery because they do art classes at night, in the evenings, and so on. On the second floor, we are proposing a 3-hour metal swing door, fire door. This door would have a closer, so its normal position would be closed. As far as suppression goes, our existing building 117 is partially suppressed. The basement and the third floor is suppressed, but we have enough capacity in the system to add additional sprinklers. And so, as Glenn noted, we will be adding the deluge system on the 117 side of each of these openings. So we feel that the combination of the 3-hour fire doors on each of the levels plus the suppression on the 117 side provides an equal construction in terms of the fire protection, the fire rating of the party wall. And I guess to some of the comments from that arose in the previous application, that again, this is a building. It is both buildings, or both units, are owned by the art center. It is a property line technically. They are two different tax parcels. We have a lot of similar issues with the ownership being condominiums. That complicates technically the legalese of combining the properties. But for I guess what I'm saying is, like, practically speaking, it's one owner, and so we are basically seeing the party wall as a firewall, and we're protecting it as you would any normal firewall.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
Just because you're doing the deluge on only one side of the wall, is there a reason why it's only on one side?
Yeah, so currently the 115 side is not suppressed, although actually a representative from the contractor from O'Neill Construction, who is a little bit more well-versed in the fire suppression system. So if Matt Goodenow is able to chime in with any additional information, that would be helpful. But my understanding is that it is not suppressed on the 115 side.
Okay.
Is there enough water capacity or size of the line? Is it the issue? You don't have to suppress the 115 side for the building?
I think it has to do with the size of the line. But again, I would defer to Matt on that one.
Do we have Matt currently present, Deb?
It looks like, can you guys hear me?
Aha.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Glenn?
Yes, we hear you.
We hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. All technical difficulties. Yeah, so that is correct. We don't have adequate water source on the 115 side to be able to add fire suppression on the 115 side. We do have plenty of water source available on the 117 side that we could feed both sides of the opening, but we assume that wouldn't be allowed to cross the firewall and suppress two addresses with from one side of the building.
So if I could ask, what triggers the fire shutter? Well, actually, let me ask this question first. The door that's on the upper floor, is that on some kind of a magnetic hold open, or is it just typically a self-closing fire door?
The second, it would be a self-closing fire door. There would be no hold open.
Okay, and it would be 3 hour?
Yes.
Okay. Just so you know, on your schedule, it references back to a 2 hour fire door with a panic bar.
Okay, I will double check that. I think that this might have been left over from a previous version. Actually, it should be a 3 hour fire door with a closer and no
Okay,
open.
but no panic.
Pardon?
No, without a panic bar.
And without a panic bar. Yes, it's not an egress door. Both the buildings egress separately without having to go through either one of these openings.
Okay. And what triggers the fire shutter?
So it'd be triggered by the fire alarm on either side of the door.
Okay, so, and then if somebody closes that fire shutter every night, they have the wherewithal to reset it every morning?
So I'm not sure logistically what's involved, but that door would be closed every night and opened every morning.
Well, that's a kind of big logistical question.
Mhm.
I mean, there's somebody who, first of all, that it can do that, and there's nothing, more complicated than opening,
There's a fusible link in there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's your intent. It seems like you don't want swinging doors or some other kind of door there to be kind of close them and open them every day because
Right. No, the
be
intent
able to do that.
is to have a generous opening between the gallery and the retail space. Just as a way to function and a way to provide so that the art center staff can monitor both spaces easily during the day.
Tresna, might I suggest, like you say, I assume the overhead closing door would be triggered by either the fire alarm or a fusible link. I think part of the idea of closing the gate every night is a measure of security. Maybe that could be done with, a non-rated, just basic security gate that, wouldn't impede the function of the fire shutter.
It could, I suppose. I guess in my, research on the fire door system, I mean, this door is rated to be opened up to 10 times per day. It's not like a high traffic kind of door, but it definitely would support being open and closed once every day.
So I'm used to a fire door that you can open and shut, and then it has a fusible link. So if the door happens to be opened, it triggers the weight, and then a weight drops down and the door shuts. It sounds like there's something like that, where it's a usable door, reasonably usable door. But if it's left open and the fusible link is broken, then it automatically allows the door to shut.
That was my understanding as well.
But the door is connected to the fire alarm system. That triggers it closing.
Can it not be linked to both a fusible link and a fire alarm? It's not my area of expertise, so I apologize for that. But I don't know. I guess from my understanding, that I think that those things were possible, that you could have it operate it once a day, and yet in an open position, it could be triggered to be closed if it were either by a fusible link and or fire alarm.
You probably could word the motion in a way that we just said has opening protections on there, and then you could determine what kind of protection you want to put on there, if it's a swinging door, overhead door, or whatever. But it's just going to have a 3 hour opening protection on there. We give you some flexibility.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
Was there any other part of the applicant too? That's just the opening. Is the one thing we're dealing with in this, as far as the variance? This is the opening or the two levels.
No, this, it was just this issue with openings on the property line.
Okay. Any other questions by the board? Need somebody to come up with a motion?
One minute. Okay. This is under appeal granted language. I moved it in case BBA 21-004, the appeal of the building official's decision that the work to be performed at 115 and 117 West Liberty is granted relief from section 705 and table 705.8, and that the building board of appeal reverses the building official's decision for the reasons that the applicant is proposing an equal or better form of construction with the following stipulations: that the applicant can verify the capability of the fire shutter to operate automatically and manually without jeopardizing its functionality, and that door number 230 is confirmed to be a 3-hour rated self-closing non-egress door.
You have a second?
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Is there any?
I'm
You want to have?
I'm raising my hand, if I might.
Okay. Go ahead.
Um, Was there going to be a water system on one side?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of their proposal.
Is it in the stipulation?
It's
not
part
written.
of their plan proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably
Right.
good to include that in the narrative. Probably would be good to. It's on the one. The fire sprinklers on the 117 side, I guess. The deluge system on the 117 side.
So you'd want to add that as another part of the.
Yeah, I think it would reinforce their application then, just to be friendly amendment to include that in the narrative.
Then Deborah, amending the motion to read that there will be a fire suppression deluge system at each level on the 117 West Liberty side of the opening.
Thank you.
Second, the amendment.
Okay. Any other further discussion? If not, those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
The next item on the agenda is, let's scroll back up there.
Deborah, just as a point of order, when we were unanimous, it's a vote of 4 people, not 5. I think Paul might have said he thought it was 5-0 for the
5 or
last one.
4? Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any old business from the board? New business? So Glenn, you had commented that we have another person resigned from the board, so we're looking at more people to be on the board.
Yes, we have 2 open positions and we are looking for applicants right now.
Any other new business? Seeing none, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. 2:42.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good month.
Have a nice 4th, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.